Hello everybody, my name is RamonPang, and today I'm going to be breaking down the Ableton project for my remix of Four Tet's Love Cry. Four Tet Love Cry is probably one of my favorite songs by him. I discovered it in about 2015, and I loved how it rolled along. If you watch the Future Music little breakdown that he did for Sing and Love Cry, you can kind of see how he goes over it and his philosophy behind it, specifically of making it sound like it's somebody at a console going crazy. Also around this time, he was making stuff for playing out and DJing at the Plastic People Club in the UK. I'm not going to go into a whole tangent of all the crazy Four Tet knowledge I know, but basically around this time of Four Tet in 2010, I kind of wanted to take his idea of something that rolls along and then kind of goes crazy and reaches a climax, but do it in my own way. And my own way in 2023, I was playing a lot of rollers, but a lot of crazy music. And I was like, what if we had like a song that kind of rolled around and people got really into and hypnotized by, and then a big scary drop comes in for like 3 seconds, people lose their mind, and then it goes back to normal. And that was the whole intent behind what I was trying to do here. This is one track, one remix where like I actually went in with an idea of what I wanted to do. Started this around 2023. I actually didn't know where to take it for a very long time. Think about like a year and a half or 2 years or so. And it was mostly just like the progression and getting it to kind of finish. It's because I lost sight of the plot. TLDR, like I wanted to do this big like over mono style like drumless breakdown, and then it goes back in and rolls, and it just wasn't working. So now it's just the original intent. It's like a roller. The original idea for this track kind of started from that one little seedling of an idea where I'm like, let's do something that rolls along, then something that scares people. You know, I purely thought about this from like a DJ perspective, and then all the extra flourishes, like the musical stuff that happens in the outro, I kind of added in later. And I'm gonna go over all of this. If you haven't heard the remix yet, I would recommend listening to it on all the streaming services, you know, Bandcamp, Apple Music, wherever. This will make a lot more sense. And yeah, let's just get into the beginning of it. First thing I did was I split the stems because this is like an older track. Stems aren't anywhere official, I don't believe. What's funny was I actually asked Four Tet himself if I could get the original stems so I could like replace these really badly filtered ones. And he was basically like, I don't have them anymore. And I was like, whatever. So we have these kind of like stems filtered by Ultimate Vocal Remover. It's free. Highly recommend it. There's a nice GUI on it. This is kind of how they sound on their own. Right over here. This is like the full section. Sounds a little bad and a little filtered out. Even in the Four Tet breakdown that he did of this, he mentioned that the vocals already sounded really time stretched in the 2010 version. I care more about like how it emotionally makes me feel. I was like halfway through recording this, and then I realized that you couldn't see the plugins I was pulling up. My bad. So sorry if the screen changes a little bit. I don't care about making perfect YouTube videos. I'd rather just kind of make music. Sorry. Yeah, I just kind of used the 1176 to kind of just compress this a little bit. Compressing about like -3, -5, just to get a little bit more compression, loudness out of it. So the transients, what little there are, kind of stay intact and kind of cut through the drums. Speaking of the drums, I wanted to do kind of a roller for this one. And I was really into like the way that Todd Edwards kind of rolling, slightly swung garage. It's American garage. Kind of drums were swinging around and had these kind of like triplet rim shots. There's a lot of clicks and stuff. I think this came from an original kind of house loop that I chopped up and swung a little bit of the MPC 16th groove on it. But I think these just sound like very classic regular drum machine hats to me. Probably pitched down because I liked how Todd Edwards was kind of following the Masters at Work kind of pitched down drum machines at the time. Another fun side tangent as a kind of after effect of the technology of garage and stuff happening. I noticed that with Masters of Work and Todd Edwards, the hi-hats and the percussion loops tended to be pitched down, while in the UK, because they were like speeding up these garage records, the percussion and hi-hat loops not only sounded faster and thinner because you were literally like, you know, speeding up the speed of the vinyl, they also sounded more high-pitched because you were speeding up the vinyl and stuff. And that's why really swung kind of UKG from the UK, even though like the early days of garage sounded pitched up and more nimble, whereas like kind of the original American kind of garage and house sounded a little bit more pitched down and a little bit more, the drums had a little bit more space, and I feel like that makes the triplet like roll along in a way that I liked for this track. And just because I wanted to go a little more modern, I have a more standard kind of kick and snare going on here. Kick and snare. kick and snare per usual is clipped. This was back when I used this is before I got K-Clip, so I was using this free clipper called Free Clip. I don't even think it's really clipping anything. You can tell when it's clipping something because it turns red. As an example. This is pretty important, I feel like, for house music. When the kick and snare play at the same time, you don't want the snare jumping out in the waveform. Unless you want to do it. I mean, it's your track, you know. And then for the percussion, I just have, in addition to this kind of hi-hat thing, I have this kind of fidget housey kind of high percussion going on. I feel like this helps place it in like kind of the more high brain area space. I got this from like a fidget house splice pack. I used a lot of these percussions in like 2021 to 2023. You can hear it most prominently on my track Thin Sand from my debut album Nature System. And the bass is just a splice loop, I think. I kind of wanted to keep it really simple. I know in the original Love Cry, Four Tet was kind of using like a filtered kind of percussion loop, and I think like some sine wave like low hits. So I didn't want to do anything too crazy with the bass. I wanted it to kind of just roll around and be rhythmic with the drums. This bass has a lot of, it has a really funny EQ. I'm not gonna lie, this EQ I'm kind of overcompensating a little bit because when I sent this remix to Four Tet and he said he really liked it, he said he had a problem specifically with I think the kind of 80 to 100 range, and no doubt he was fucking correct. Like, this is what it is without it. It kind of rings a little bit too much. And probably sounded crazy on a club system. And this is what it sounds like with the EQ. Thanks, Four Tet. And now here's the part you probably really want to know about, but is probably the most anticlimactic part of it. It's the big crazy drop. I'll be honest, I'm not great at writing drops. I'm good at arranging samples. And what I was thinking was, what gets people's attention the most in like a house and techno set? And this is like around 2023, before everybody started doing like crazy 140 switch ups with their tech house set or whatever. People were kind of doing that, but I felt like it was mostly a Four Tet thing back then. At least he had my favorite way of doing it. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, we could probably make it go down to halftime. So I took the same drums. Another way to get people's attention is to put a insane snare on top. This is from the Jimmy Edgar and Machine Drum sample pack, Jets. This one's very resonant and obviously sounds very different from this kind of MJ Cole one happening right here. Yeah, if you really want to get people's attention, make your thing as resonant, high-pitched, and annoying as possible. Everything else is kind of about the same. It's just the kick and snare playing in halftime. The way that I likely did this was I had the kick and snare first in halftime, right over here. And then I decided to put my favorite 808 underneath it, which is the Jets, Jimmy Edgar, and Machine Drum sample pack 808. This 808 is really funny. I'm going to let you in on some ball knowledge. This 808 originally sounds like this. And I think it sounds pretty cool, but I think I just pitched it down one day and realized this vibrates in the scariest way ever, especially on a big system. I think this goes down to like 25 or 30. Yeah, it's the Potions 08 D sharp 808. Feel free to steal that. This one and like the Murda 808 are like my favorite 808s in the world. So once I had this drum beat, I was like, okay, how can we make this sound insane? And I found these kind of glitchy samples right over here. So these samples come from Sabroy. Sabroy has a sample pack on his Bandcamp that's insane. If you don't know Sabroy, he probably is one of the most insane sound designers and like Max MSP programmers that I know. He famously did this device called AS Console, and one of my favorites, AS Steps. I think he did that with Hellbound. Yeah, he just had these like, he just had the sample pack of crazy glitchy noises. I didn't even EQ them. I just kind of took this decapitator and did the extra sizzle setting because I wanted it to be extra sizzling. probably turn this punish button on because it makes things sound really annoying and high-pitched, and that's a great way to get people's attention. And that's pretty much it. I just kind of arranged these and kind of crossfaded it in groove with something. A way to get things to kind of groove with drops and kind of like halftime beats is to kind of place them where drum hits are happening. For example, it's this glitch kind of stops right before the big snare. So the snare has a ton of space now. And then this kind of elongated glitch right over here, it kind of blends with the big 808. It makes it sound extremely loud. It makes it sound like one sound is just kind of soaring through the mix. When you play it with context, it's like snare and then whoa. You know what I mean? And because I wanted it to happen really quickly, I put in some melodic elements so that the kind of lead over back into the roller isn't as... It's both very sudden, but it's also not unexpected. You know what I mean? The easiest way to do that is just kind of to reintroduce original elements. This is from the acoustic guitar at the end of Four Tet Love Cry. And then this kind of chopped up vocal is back. So just in full again, it's like... The reverb also helps with the kind of lead back into the roller. What other interesting things we got going on? People have asked me how the vocal chop is done. I'll be honest, I don't have a good answer for this. You just kind of have to do it by hand. Usually what I'll start kind of doing is I'll take little bits and pieces of a vocal and kind of move them around on beat, kind of like we were talking about before with the drop and kind of doing it on quantized things. But yeah, essentially, I read this study that was basically like, in order to make things interesting and danceable, there needs to be kind of like a medium amount of syncopation, where if something is too straight beat, the human brain gets kind of bored, especially when you have like a roller going on. It's like, okay, I know this kick and snare kind of goes here. And when you start introducing things on offbeats and rhythms that are interesting when paired up with another straight beat that's already been established, that's when kind of the brain has to work a little bit more. And that's kind of when physical motion and dancing occurs. Like if I were to do kind of a similar vocal chop, it's like, oh, maybe I'll do vocal chops not exactly on the beat, but kind of on the offbeat, and then make sure it resolves in like a good way. This could sound really bad. Usually I do this by sight first, and then I'll adjust by ear. Let's see. Again, I haven't listened to this at all yet. What if I do something like this and like this? Let's see how, and then repeat that, because as Adam Neely said, repetition legitimizes. See, that could be cool, but it's like a little bit too fast for me. It's just kind of a look into how I probably would have chopped this about 3 years ago. Maybe like this. That could be cool. Like you do like that, and then it's like making puzzle pieces fit, you know? That's pretty cool. I like that. So it's like something like that, you know? And at the end of every phrase, I like to have a changeover so people know that a phrase is repeated, you know? Not much going on for the rest of this song. Kind of repeats along here, and then I have this kind of chord stab. This is from the Lego Well sample packs online, I believe. Four Tet also recommended these. You hear a lot of these kind of Lego Welt samples on his 2017 album, especially in the SW9 SL song. That's just straight from the Lego Welt sample pack, this one shot that kind of occurs throughout the whole song. The last interesting tidbit is just more sample arrangement and just letting things kind of turn over. This outro where I do a lot more melodic kind of interesting things. This is the same sample origin as before, just moving puzzle pieces around and creating kind of a call and response that I think is interesting enough, but not annoying enough. A lot of these kind of sounds are taken from my song Loud and Tranquil, especially a lot of this, like... This is taken from, like, the stems of this song. These are from my friend Kelvin, who did a great VCV Rack sample pack. People ask me what's on the master chain of this. I'll move my camera so you can see. There's nothing. Absolutely nothing. Probably a limiter. Maybe I threw a limiter on this. Maybe I didn't. I guess my words of wisdom would be, I think the phenomenology of this track makes up for the kind of lack of technical stuff going on. I feel like the shock and awe of a roller turning into a crazy drop with the melodic stuff going on is just enough for people to lose their minds every time this comes on. I've seen it with my own eyes. I got to see it at the forum when Four Tet dropped this track. That was pretty insane. Yeah, I'm just really happy this one's out. Let me know if I should do more project breakdowns in the future. And yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Keep making tunes, you know.